anxious attachment is probably one of the most prevalent attachment styles that people have. And we are wanting to deal with how to overcome that and the best ways for you to overcome that applicably and tangibly, not just theoretically. What I've noticed is a lot of people, when they get on these kind of topics, it becomes a theoretical kind of conversation, um, where you just have to think, you just have to think differently and think better. And those things have a play, but I think there's a lot more potentially that goes into it. One of the things that goes into it more deeply is your ability to actually connect with your body, all right, and heal your attachment style through your body, because your attachment style is, yes, a reflection of inner child wounds. That's really what people are saying when they're saying they're dealing with attachment style issues. What's happening, Cleo? What's happening, sis? How you living? Um, where you been? You've been ducking smoke. I need you to get right. On the secure program, man. Where you been at? Um, got to get you right. Got to get you right. Um, but dealing with your attachment style, yeah, we're dealing with like inner child wounds. It's been very challenging. Let's talk about it. Well, I mean, if you want to talk about it, um, how would you rate your week on a scale of 1 to 10? Um, oh, okay, back to back questions. Let's talk about it. What's up, Ginger? This guy lied and rushed intimacy and said only give his heart when he gives his body, and vice versa. Yeah, what's your question with that? If there is one, because that is really tough. But there's a way that we can avoid those things in the future, so it doesn't happen again. Why did he block me after cheating on me? Because he didn't want to face truth and he didn't want to deal with the repercussions of his actions, consequences of his decisions, and the easiest way to do that is to block people. And blocking is one of the most emotionally. Thank you for the daily heart me. I appreciate you a ton. Blocking is one of the most emotional responses. Yeah, that's a tendency, Kate. Yeah. Um, and it's a very immature response. And I think it's something that you're seeing this person have a capped out. What are we trying to say here? A limited capacity of dealing with confrontation, of dealing with truth. Anybody who's able to betray you, cheat on you in any kind of way, and then try to flip it on you as if you're the problem by blocking you, it's more about them first and foremost, and it's nasty work. Straight up, it's nasty work. And what we shouldn't do is try to find ourselves trying to solve that or trying to figure that out. Um, and just know that even though it may suck and it may hurt in the moment, you're better off for it, because that's not somebody that you probably want to come into a full agreement with for a long term relationship, marriage, connection. None of that's there. And I hope that's something encouraging to take with you. I've said this before on previous lives. Rejection is either by preference or preparation, but it oftentimes isn't about you. And again, when somebody can engage in that, thank you for the daily heart, me, Cleo. I appreciate you a ton. So like when somebody can engage in that and just freely walk off, yeah, nah, no, no, no. That's somebody that is dysfunctional and is duplicating that dysfunction where they go. And I hope that makes sense. Um, I want to go back to the previous statement. She mentioned, or this person mentioned, uh, he lied, saying, lied, rushed intimacy, and said only give his heart when he gives his body. Yeah, we have to pay attention to behaviors. No consistency after intimacy, push pull cycle. Yeah, Ginger, we have to pay attention to behaviors. This probably isn't the funnest way to learn that, but it is a lesson in that. With that, it is a lesson here that we can learn from that. We have to pay attention to people's behaviors. Rushing intimacy. First of all, hurry and intimacy are incompatible. You can't actually create legitimate intimacy when there's hurry, when there's rushed experiences, um, all the things. That's more of like an intense encounter. There's a difference between intensity and intimacy, right? So intensity is more about trying to rush and compact so much into one moment. Okay. Yeah, and that's a common thing, right? Love language, physical touch, all the things. But I want you to pay attention to this because everything that you're going to say is not going to be able to. All of it is. It almost sounds like it could come off as justification. We don't want to justify it. We just want to just look at it, right? So even though his love language is physical touch, all the things. Um, when we move with intensity, we're just trying to compact everything that longevity or intimacy is supposed to bring into this small window of encountering one another. So, one night stands, maybe 3 months of relationships, those kinds of things. When we try to just squeeze what is supposed to take time to build into this small window of opportunity, we're not actually creating intimacy. And it's very limiting. Whereas, when we engage with actual true intimacy, this is longevity. You're seeing consistency. You're seeing patterns. You're seeing the ability to actually connect legitimately for who you are, not for what you can give and not for what you have. Intimacy that is, again, built over time healthily. And so that's the first thing I want to point out is that even though we're labeling it as intimacy, and yes, you're probably referring to relations that you shared with one another in a moment, that really legitimately wasn't intimacy like we're calling it. And so then understanding that also helps us understand that before we start taking people at their word, we need to start paying attention to people's behaviors and actions, consistencies, okay, patterns, um, waiting, pausing, right? Not just jumping in because this person said, hey, they are going to, I have their heart when they give their body. Like that honestly, in a lot of ways, uh, mm, I mean, depending on what stage it was said, how often it was said, and the moments that was said, doesn't even make sense. And so we have to get into a place of pausing and reflecting on those things um, before we just jump into it, because people will say anything to have anything they want. And before we even pay attention and try to set up different verbiages that other people should say that gives them access to us in various different lanes, we should be mindful and say, hey, does this even resemble something that aligns with my values at this stage of the relationship? um can I honor myself enough to set this boundary, stick to this boundary, even if this person sees it and then says, okay, they're good and leaves? Can I still honor that boundary, stick to that boundary, and choose myself in that space, even if this person looks at me that I may be interested in, I want, and it's like, I'm good. Because then that's just letting us know what the real reason they're there for. And it's not actually to create longevity of connection, it's there to take, and that's not healthy. Um, but when calling him out and holding him accountable using silence as punishment until I reach out, yeah, I think you're just seeing the characteristics of who you're dealing with. Um, yeah, you're just seeing the reality of what you're dealing with, and using silence as punishment, silent treatment, all the things. Yeah, I mean, you're just catching on, and you're seeing the patterns, the issues, the tensions there. That if you're honest with your values and where you're at, you're like, hey, this doesn't even make sense for me. So then why should we then make a big deal out of it? And by saying a big deal, why should we center our attention and focus on trying to fix it, trying to solve it, trying to get answers for it? Ah, it's a waste of time. And we learn, right? And so now that we're aware of these things, repeating it is more so of a you problem. Repeating it is more so of a you problem. And we want to get ahead of that by just being honest. By being honest. There's a lot of people who engage in these kind of relationships and steps, and you give away things too soon. And when you don't put somebody in a position to earn your trust, to earn access, to earn what you have to offer, um, people can say anything to you. Then what? You know? And yeah. So those are some thoughts that I think could be helpful. Um, as you are okay, now they're trying to make me update the app. That's tough. Yeah, I think those are some things that you want to take into consideration um, to be able to move forward healthily. And how to put a boundary to earn access. Yeah. Well, one, we got to understand the power of what boundaries look like. Um, Boundaries do one of two things, right? They are here to help you protect yourself from others and to protect you from yourself. So your boundaries are typically going to be a reflection of your values. So before we just start saying what isn't and what is, because this is kind of going to go into a long topic of conversation, but I'm going to try to minimize it because sometimes those rants can go forever. But to just put it into digestible things, your boundaries are a reflection of your values, and your values are oftentimes, or really, a centerfold, a reflection of your identity. And so this is kind of why you'll see a lot of people who will set boundaries in their life, and then the moment somebody comes around and it's something that they really want, they're willing to excuse all their boundaries to keep this person. It's because at an identity level, right, there's still something, a void, there's still a struggle, a tension that's causing you to look at that boundary and be like, bump that. So this is kind of why you might have a few good days in that boundary, but then all of a sudden you're going back to the places of, whether that's hurry, passion, shame, guilt, all the things that might push you to look at that boundary and be like, nah, bump that. I want to give this person everything today. Right. Um, and so at an identity level, we have to be curious about that. So doing that is really just getting clarity on who you are, who you want to be, who has God called you to be, right? And we of course learn that through his word. We learn that through his word, all those things. But then when you set a boundary and you're setting that applicably, we're going back to values. So your values, by definition, is attitudes, perspectives, beliefs, principles that govern your life among the world around you. Okay, this is a custom definition from a good friend and coach of mine, Dr. Zeb, phenomenal in this space. And so I encourage you guys to check his work out. He has a TikTok as well, Zeb Tally the Third. Um, but yeah, we want to be careful. All right. So when I set my values or when I set my boundaries, I'm coming back to what I value. So if you were to put a list of at least 5 to 7 things you say you value, this is where we should develop our boundaries. And then now, when we look at that, we're asking ourselves, does engaging with this person cause us to ignore our boundaries or step out of alignment to keep and have? If the answer is yes, then that's not a good decision. You still going through with that decision shows that you just don't care and it's not a value in the first place. So that's typically how you want to set your boundaries for access. Hey, this is something I'm saying no to because this is what's best for the relationship to go in a healthy direction. Because you're not interested, doesn't sound like, and I could be wrong, doesn't sound like you're interested in wanting to be a one night stand, a pump and dump, a gas station where somebody just pumps and goes, pumps and pays, right? Like you're not interested in that. You're interested in longevity. You're interested in long term connection. You're interested in wanting to cultivate something that actually is lasting and isn't something that causes you to feel like you're thrown away, not cared for, all the things. So if that's the case, well, there's boundaries that have to be put in place. And you have to be willing to stand with those boundaries and say no to certain things, pushes, agendas, curiosities, intrigues, all the things. You have to be willing to say no to that. Even if that means by you saying no, this person walks away. And that's typically where a lot of you fold. It's like, I'm saying no and I'm good at saying no to everyone else, but this person that I really want, I'm going to give them all the access early on. And I'm afraid that if I did say no, they wouldn't want me anymore. And that's a reflection of a struggle and tension with identity and value. So tangibly, write out your values. And then based off the values that you establish, there comes your boundaries. What are you saying no to? What are you saying no to? And why are you saying no? Those are really, really important. So that is what I would say. That's what I would say. And I hope that makes sense. And that's really an applicable thing that you can engage with moving forward that I think will help you see a difference in your relationships altogether. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I appreciate you guys stopping by. Be sure to like the live, repost it, share with others. Hey, listen, if you're new, my name is Coach Sean. I'm a faith-based relationship coach. I'm here to help you build healthier, happier, and whole relationships with yourself, with God, and with others. We're actually on a 6-day streak when it comes to going live, and that's going to be broken because I'm not going to go live tomorrow. But all these conversations have been really helpful this week, and we've kind of hinted and talked a lot on different things. Had a lot of awesome conversations, in-depth conversations with various different people in where they're at. And I think today could be another opportunity to help you where you are. All right. And so, as you have a question, ask away in the chat. I may call you up. Don't think it weird. This is just a way for us to continue having the conversation, depending on where it's going. And yeah, if you're also interested too, while you're waiting, while you're asking questions, while you're engaging in the chat, I have a free relational diagnostic at the top of my page. Okay. You click that link, click into the relationship portal. There you'll be able to take a questionnaire and then participate in the following steps to actually get some applicable help with some of the things that you discover that are patterns that are actually underneath the surface of your struggles in relationships. Okay. Um, and so pay attention to that. You actually be able to book a qualification call with your boy that actually will put you in line to potentially join my program, my coaching, all the things. And there's a potential spot for you to get the help you need. Okay. So be sure to check that out. Um, and we'll be good. All right. Shout out to Diamond Dizzier. He doesn't call or reach out via phone, but when we meet physically, he's giving boyfriend vibes. Oh, that's interesting. So what are your thoughts on that? What is your question? What is your question with that? Um, I have a very, very different takes than maybe a lot of people um have. Hey, shout out to you, Erica. I saw your message too. I actually have my other phone in front of me, so I was just about to respond. I appreciate you a ton, Erica. Thank you so much. Um, and yeah, 6-day streak, man. We've been on live every day. It's been dope. Having a lot of awesome conversations with you guys, and really getting to the bottom of some things. The mornings are the hardest. Ooh, the mornings are the hardest. Why is that, Erica? Why would you say that? Um, like in terms of like going live, or are you speaking of something different? I appreciate you a ton, Ginger. Thank you so much. You're dope. You're dope. We're all dope together. How about that? Um, ah, okay. Yeah, yeah, yeah. How long have I been coaching for, man? Going on 5 years. Um, yeah, going on 5 years. 2021 was when I started stepping into some of these spaces. Well, more so 2022. I say 2021 because, I was actually starting to, put content out and things like that. So, 4 to 5 years, that's a good number. 4 to 5 years. All right. Been in the space and I've been doing a lot of the work that I'm doing and sharing with you guys. At first, I was doing a lot of it for free, and that's just where it started, to be able to put, legitimate, results behind helping people. And it only grew. God has only breathed on it. And so here we are, continuing to build and steward that in this season. Who knows what things look like in the future? Um, yeah, that's a great question. What inspired me to do it, man? Honestly, what me getting coached. I was in spaces of circles of just taken in by others who were pouring into me, discipling, stewarding, really just took care of me in a lot of different ways. And I was able to really experience a lot of various healing in those spaces from things that I didn't even know were, issues or at least bigger issues in my life from the smallest of things. And so, seeing that. And then I think as I was growing, seeing how men in that space were coming to me and, were asking me questions on helping them through various things, whether it was faith, relationships, all the things. And so I never claimed to have all the answers. Just staying curious, asking questions, all the things, and that just built. And God was just continuing to push me in this space as I was graduating college. I was actually going to go and get my master's degree in licenseship in therapy work, social work. That was actually the goal. I was going to become and step into places of marriage, family therapy, and made a different decision at that crossroads and decided to engage in coaching. And so that's kind of what inspired it and started it all. And here we are, helping so many other people along the way. in various different directions. And that's a little bit of the story. Um, I'm gonna go back up for a second. I see you guys' questions. I'm coming back. And I might actually, crazy enough, impromptu, might have to dip. I just got sent a Zoom recording or a Zoom link. Um, and so I might have to dip, might have a call, and I might have to come back. I want to say this really quickly. Erica said, because when I wake up, I remember what happened. I get super anxious about the breakup. The mornings are okay. How okay? That's when you cry the most. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. I think that is so interesting, Erica. And I think I want you to keep in mind, um, mornings are the hardest because you wake up, maybe there's like a transition period where like you probably as you're asleep, obviously you may not be actively thinking on it. You're finally in a rested state. You're not constantly rehearsing some of the things. And so mornings are the hardest. I want you to think about it like this, because like there's been plenty of times where you maybe have experienced loss of relationship and mornings weren't the hardest, right? And so we may not necessarily want to move with the perspective. And I don't know if that's what you're saying, but I just want to catch it. Like we don't necessarily want to move with the thought process of like, man, it's hard because it's morning, or like the morning is maybe what's playing a role in some of the grief that we're experiencing. I think it's just a part of the cycle of grief. You have the ability to make your mornings as best as possible, even in the midst of feeling some of those emotions, right? And being present in them, navigating them, um, and acknowledging, to an extent, what is it that you're really missing? Because it actually may not be so much about the person as much as it is how that person made you feel, the stories, the connections, all the things that played a role in that. Um, and so I think that's really important to consider. Um, ignore that. Okay, cool. All right, never mind. Um, all right, cool. I was about to hop off it. Yeah, no, cool. Yeah, all right. There it is. So, yeah, I think it's really important. It's the pain and hurt that I'm suffering more than the breakup more, and he isn't. Ah, yes, 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 Erica, yes. Um, and I know you mentioned, you're in therapy and things like that. Um, and so I know that you're, potentially in some good hands to really process some of that for sure. And I think it's a part of the ebbs and flows. I'm suffering more from the breakup than he is. And I want you to consider this too, right? Because that's some of the belief, especially behind transitions of relationships. Like, it's unfair that you're feeling more of the weight, more of the pain than he is. And honestly, I think there's a lot of that we're looking at, and that's an assumption. That's more of a story that we're creating because, maybe we aren't able to see them move in various different pains. Doesn't look like they're hurt. Maybe they're already in relationships, whatever the other case is. I can't tell you how many times I've sat in front of people and, in the midst of the hurt and pain that they're experiencing, part of what is in, adding additional suffering is the belief that the person isn't hurting as much as they are, which then leads them to believe that they ever love me as much as I love them, care for me as much as I care for them, those kinds of things. And sometimes that's an assumption made because of what we're seeing and how we're seeing them move externally. But just because they moved on, or not even moved on, just because they're dating someone else, or they're not crying, or they're not posting about it, or anything like that, it doesn't necessarily mean um, his MO is to go to sleep with women immediately. Yeah, and that's what hurts too, right? So there's a variety of things, right? But I want you to yeah, and I want you to consider this too. Like it's not so much that maybe he's not hurting, because let's think about it. Like Erica, for real, like let's think about it. A healed man, a healed man, all right, is not necessarily going to move with the aspect of, you know, carrying an MO to sleep with women immediately. That's not a healed mindset. So if it's not a healed mindset, we already know that that's a hurting mindset, right? That's a limiting belief. That is a man who's wounded too. And his way of expressing that may not necessarily be through the emotional aspect of things as much as it is numbing those emotions by sleeping with other women and moving around and making that his MO. That is a hurting man, right? And so he's hurting. It's just not being expressed in the same way. And I think that's one of the things that we have to be mindful of. And they may never admit that, right? They may never admit that they're hurting, but that doesn't mean they're not. We know plenty of people who are good at posting on social media, good at looking good for the camera on social media. And then when they put that phone down, not only do they despise the person that they just posted a picture with, that they did for all the fans, that they did for all their followers and all the things, but they're crying, they're in pain, and there's a lot of different things that are happening there. And so we want to be mindful of just kind of catching some of that, right? And also too, not trying to live in the other person's head, trying to figure out why they aren't feeling the way that we are. Because I think some of the hurt is also due to just how badly and deeply you wanted to love, you wanted to express love, and I think that is also showing your ability to be human. I'm scared of somebody. I'm scared of somebody who can get into a relationship and be sexually connected to somebody and and just walk away like nothing happened. I'm scared of them type of people. I just don't get it. I don't. It is not a life that I want to live. It is not a life and alignment that I see fit in my life. Um, yeah, that's tough, man. Like you shared, especially for women, man, one of the core things that are experienced in relationships and possibly one of those like last things, right? Especially for women, there's this, eh, you know, men move with sex differently than women. That's not to say one is better or right than the other. This is just like the makeup of men and women, right? Like so men are productive creatures, yes. Women are receivers, all the things. So, but what's interesting, man, is for a woman, like at the core, her giving up the center of her body, that is that is a big deal. That is a big deal. Like that isn't something that we just do. Uh or at least I think from a perspective of that, something you just do randomly, right? Like that's a big deal. That's a big trust factor for a woman to be able to say, I am safe enough to experience you in this form of closeness, um, to literally allow you to be inside of me. Okay, let's just speak plainly. Like that's a big deal, right? And so there's a lot of different, and we understand from that level and layer too that those relations aren't just what we do and experience on the surface level. And so there's a lot going on there. There's a lot going on there. And I do believe it or not, man, I think there are a lot of men, yeah, it should be. Absolutely, Jazz. Absolutely, it should be, right? Um, but you also have to consider too, there are men who feel similar. There are men who feel similar. There are men who understand the weight of that kind of encounter, and who understand the importance of that and want to steward that. And I think a healed man fits in that category. And a man who is looking at that and says, "This is just another check off my list," that's a hurting man. That's a hurting, dysfunctional man. And that is not somebody that we're just trying to operate in. And I think we're in a culture where some of that stuff is so desensitized and normal, we don't look at that and question it. We're just like, it's just another thing. It's like, ooh, no, slow down for a second. Let's come back to the present moment. Is that really normal? No. There's a lot of behaviors that are happening out here that aren't normal behavior, but because we've seen it so often, we just treat it as normal behavior. That's that's not normal. That's not normal. Um, you know, and I think that's interesting. I think, well, and I would say like this, it's normal in the sense of it's what we see regularly. It's not normal in the sense of what it's designed to be. I'll say it like that. I'll say it like that. And I think these are also good spaces to have conversations too. And I'm not saying this is what this conversation is turning into. Um, like it, this also opens up the window, y'all. Like, because I think especially as people who are absolutely Erica, yeah. And I think you want to be, these are where conversations just are helpful in these spaces, right? Um, this also opens up the door for conversations on engagement of sex and all the things. Um, I think that's something that I think, especially as I've grown up in church and just my background from where I came from, and all the things like that's just stuff that wasn't talked about and wasn't talked about in a healthy way. And so a lot of people, especially as believers, we're just out here trying to fend for ourselves. And in one way or another, there's a belief, there's like two extremes, right? Like if I wait till marriage, then that means my marriage is going to be golden. And if I wait and then there's like, okay, well, then there's this fear of, okay, well, what if I wait until marriage, don't know what I'm doing, and this is something that easily ruins the entirety of the relationship and intimacy that can be built. So then there's this other aspect to it where it's like, I don't know if it's in my best interest to wait. I probably want to figure everything out and engage in this, right? So that way I know what I'm doing. And that's for both parties. But I think, man, when we open up this door, it's gonna get deep. It's gonna get deep. And it's probably a lot different than maybe where we're all used to hearing. But I'm definitely not against having those kind of conversations. You're talking to somebody who has made a decision, by the way, and this is just for me and my values. Like I'm waiting. I've made the decision to wait. I've made the legitimate decision to be like, yo, I've waited. But here's the thing: majority of people haven't. And so having this conversation is really, really important because there's a lot of people who haven't. And you had experiences, all the things, and that's not to create shame. That's not to create shame. Like that's just to have let's have the conversation, right? Because most people aren't in that boat. Most people, especially statistically, I'm pretty sure it's by the age of last time I looked at some of the statistics, I believe it was like by the age of 18, um, I believe it was at least in the high 80 percentile, 80, maybe 90% of people have already had a sexual partner and a sexual encounter. And then by the time they get to 21, 22, 23, they've had two or three, you know? And so like that's a majority of the population. So like a majority of people ain't doing that. And that's no shame or no shade. And what's crazy is, I think the church has done a horrible job of navigating these kind of conversations because all they do is shame you and they shame and guilt trip you into not doing. And it's like, well, that ain't helpful either. That ain't helpful. Just to shame and guilt trip, no shot. That is not how we're going to carry this kind of conversation. Um, and I think there's a lot of different avenues to take with it, man. I think that can open up a door to just having honest conversations about not just abstinence, but sexual connections, activity. What do we do while we're waiting? How do we wait? What even if it's engaging in some of these connections, um, you know, in the dating processes, what does that look like? You know, um, and there's a lot of thoughts to that. So perhaps that's something. Put a one in the chat if that's something that y'all would be interested in like a future live on, because I do want to be intentional with that. I do want to prepare comments and thoughts on that. Um, and I think that would be really helpful. So let me put a one in the chat if that's something you would look forward to. You would swing back around, um, and would listen in on, because I think that's a great conversation to have. Um, for sure. So I see a couple ones. Okay. Yeah, for sure. Awesome. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah, and we'll definitely do that. Um, so be on the lookout for that. Matter of fact, that'll probably be one of the lives we do next week. All right. So I'll put a reminder out. Y'all have an opportunity to know when it's happening, so I don't just pop up on y'all and y'all miss the whole conversation. Okay, I'm gonna do better with that. Why do men go to women right after a relationship? Yeah, I think we're kind of on the conversation of that, love. Men go to women right after, just like women will go to men right after. It's the idea that if to get over one person, I'm gonna get under another. It's a human heart condition. It's a responsive, reactive condition, to dealing with hurt, to dealing with pain, to dealing with loss. And you know, what better way to do that than to numb yourself through something that is enjoyable in a moment but is suppressing long term, right? And so yeah, it's definitely something that I think we have to look at, and instead of trying to figure out why everybody else does it, understand, like, why is it something that I wouldn't do, you know? Um and so yeah. Cool. And I'm scrolling back up. Yeah, why can't they sit with themselves? Yeah, again, it's not just men, it's women too. You would be surprised, love, and I'm not saying this is you, but you'd be surprised the amount of women who operate in the same fashion. We don't This ain't just a men thing. This is a woman thing too. And women are low key more well, let me not go that far. I think there are some, I'm not going to generalize and say all women are like this cuz that's not true. But depending on the woman, she could be more scandalous than the man. Cause she not just doing it to get one up on him. She's doing it through the means of getting to his circle too to do it. So various different things. But men are scandalous too. Everybody dysfunctional. How about that? Men and women, everybody trifling. I don't, and don't take this personally, but this is what I like about doing this kind of work because like I get the privilege of saying something like this. Of course, y'all cool. Like I ain't got no shade towards y'all. Y'all know me. But all y'all dysfunctional. All y'all toe up. Men and women, all y'all can get the smoke. Toe up from the flow up. Bars in hell. I don't like none of y'all. Right? So like I'm not playing favorites. Everybody wants to point the finger, men versus woman versus man. Like, nah, fam. Like we all toe up. All y'all trash. No, not trash, but all y'all nasty. None of y'all are trash. Y'all are made in the image of God. Y'all are awesome people. But just dysfunctions and all these pains that push you to do different things and push you to different experiences. And yeah, it all plays a role. It all plays a role. Me and my boyfriend were arguing. I don't want to have children because of my disability. What's your question? Um, Sounds like that's a challenging experience to have and navigate. Um, Man, we jumped off a whole conversation and rabbit holed into sex, and I forgot what we were talking about before. Uh, Erica mentioned it earlier. I was celibate for 2 years before I met him, and he's the only man I've been with in 4 years, and I've only known him 1.5 years. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And yeah, I think those are moments. No, you're good, Erica. That's a great stuff. Again, we just figured out what we're going to be talking about next week, and so I want to come in prepared. Not just on a whim, and just talk from places that I know. I've had various conversations with people, and I guess maybe we can stay here. It's a vein. Why not? Um, like, yeah, man. Like, I've had the privilege of talking with people that I went to school with, was close with, in various seasons of my life, and it was so shocking to me when asking them questions or just getting on the conversation of relationships in general and hearing not just the girls, um, but the guys, like, fam, I remember having rosters. I remember playing the field. I remember doing all this kind of stuff. And they're coming back like, yo, it just wasn't worth it. I wish I would have waited, or I wish I would have done this. And I was astounded to hear that kind of stuff at the time because I was like, really? You believe that? Wow. Right. And I was like, that was encouraging because I went through high school, man, and just to give you a glimpse of how I think and how I move. I went through high school, all the things, and I was witnessing friends, close friends, people getting into relationships and just looking at how they treat each other. Everybody was just so horny, they didn't know what to do. So let me just get into a relationship and just experience this. And then one experience after another, it became something that was fun to do, obviously, because sex is a good thing and it's fun, but this is something that we just continuously, everybody engaged in. And so I paid attention to how they got treated. I pay attention to all that. And I was like, man, ain't nobody trying to make a decision on somebody for a long-term period of time, man. All y'all just here for a good time, not a long time. And that's telling. Um, but it's just very interesting. Very interesting. Um, let's see here. How does someone get out of the okay, so don't stop believing mention. I don't really know what to do about it. Yeah. Well, I think there's some serious conversations that can be had. I don't want to ignore what you're mentioning here. Don't stop believing. It sounds like there's a lot of tension there. You guys got into an argument and a disagreement. Listen, I always say this: the issue, um, even though the possibility is that the initial surface issue is not having children or not being in a position to have children at this current time, is like seen as the enemy. Really, there's a lot of other things at play at a deeper level, and that's not to say it's not too much to overcome. But anytime that you guys get into a disagreement, I think there's a moment where somebody, even if it has to be you because you're under the sound of my voice, you're in this live, so you're clearly looking for some direction. Um, to be able to lead in that conversation by saying, okay, let's slow down for a second. What is the common enemy? What is the common enemy? Because it doesn't need to be you versus me versus the problem. It needs to be you and me versus the problem. And the problem is maybe more or less, yes, having children or not having children in the moment. But it could be more about what not having children at this current juncture in time or not having children in the future in the relationship means about me as a man, as a woman, as an individual. And so we want to be careful of that, right? And we want to be able to catch that in a healthy space and be able to lead those conversations and disagreements because it's less about the issue on the surface. It's more about what I'm attributing meaning to this. It's the expectations, it's all those things that we want to catch. And so I would just encourage you, as you guys are just having conversations, revisiting those things, make it you and him versus the issue. Okay, what is really the common enemy here, and how can we engage with this together to be able to move forward, right? And that doesn't mean find a solution today. That doesn't mean argue until you find a solution and y'all be arguing for 3 days. There's some tension there that you just have to be able to communicate healthily through, and that would be my thoughts on that. So okay. We split 2 to 3 times before officially dating 8 months. Made it official January. She broke it off. Um, okay. Late February, do the same thing of my inconsistency. She told me no further contact. Reached out a week later, asking about her move. She responded saying her move went well. Haven't spoke since 3 weeks ago. I want to give her space. I don't know what to do. So yeah, all right. Well, let's talk about it, right? So we split 2 to 3 times for officially dating 8 months, made it official January. She broke it off. Late February, due to the same thing of my inconsistency, she told me no further contact and reached out a week later asking about her move. She responded saying her move went well. Haven't spoken since then, 3 weeks ago. Yeah, man, Colin, I'm just a fan of giving her space. That seems to be the thought process in that, give her space. Um, Listen, I think with relationships that are not just okay, I'm gonna say it like this: when we're moving in abundance, the right relationships are things that we're not going to find ourselves having to force. We can put ourselves in position to honor the request, honor the distance, honor the no contact, as even Chaz mentioned, um, and be okay with whatever the outcome is. Remember, love in and of itself, man, is not a form of selfishness. It's selflessness, right? Oftentimes we've learned love is selfish because I just have to cling to you, I have to cling to the situation, I have to cling to the romantic outcome, I have to cling to this, I have to cling to that. I move with a clenched up fist. That's not love. That's control. And so, anybody who is moving healthily and moving in a love, in abundant love, and this is maybe one of those moments that you're learning to do that, and it's not comfortable, it's not fun. However, it's necessary to move with an open hand so that you can actually see with distance, hey, one, is this even something that makes sense for me to engage in, to re-engage in? Um, and then two, how can I continue to move abundantly about this moving forward, even if am I okay even if this relationship doesn't work out the way that I want it to and the outcome isn't what I hope for? That's growth, man. That's growth. And so I just want you to engage in that from a growth mindset and a perspective. What can you learn from this experience? Not necessarily how much am I losing from this experience. And be okay with whatever that process looks like, and honor that no contact, you know, on again, off again, inconsistencies, you know, those things could play a role too, but you want to honor that for sure. And that would be my approach to that. For sure. And Chad said, and book a call. Yeah, yeah, book a call. We could get some work together. Everybody in here, I appreciate you guys a ton for checking it out. I got to scroll back up to get back into some comments and some conversations. We were talking about some good things earlier. Be sure to, of course, like this live, repost it. Take a look at the top of my bio. I have a free relational diagnostic waiting for you, that is specifically tailored to you, for you to get results in your relationships and uncover some truths that are actually patterns playing a role in the surface struggles you're experiencing in your relationships and love life. So be sure to check that out. My books are open, so I am available to do coaching sessions and all the things. So be sure to DM me with the words secure sessions if you're interested in that. If you're interested in the next steps to the coaching program, all right, I actually have a secure program designed to help you go from anxious attachment to secure, building lasting security, so you don't lose yourself in the midst of trying to find love again. All right. And being able to be okay whether marriage comes now or later. All right. So if you want access to that, be sure to DM me secure, and we can go from there. Okay. To be able to help you get those next steps acquainted. All right. And we can go from there. All right. So I'm scrolling back up here. Again, I appreciate you guys' patience. Really, 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 really do. Um, so okay. I feel like there was another question. Shout out to Erica. You know, she put this, I'm gonna pin it. I definitely put you in my path for a reason. It's great to have a male's perspective. Thank you a ton. Thank you a ton. I appreciate that. Um, let's see here. Okay, user came in. You grieving my dad, been a month. My husband has been very selfish, making it about him. I'm outraged, as you should be. Um, as you should be. I don't even know if you're still in here. Maybe you are, maybe you aren't. Anybody else who maybe is listening to this, I'm really trying to do my best to get some of these questions at a faster rate, so forgive me. But yeah, as you should be. You just lost your dad. Like, what are we doing? Yeah, as you should be. And I think grief is such a unique experience, especially when it comes to losing loved ones around you, especially when it comes to navigating that as a married couple. And yeah, I think we should really be in a space where we're trying to navigate that together and not try to make it all about one or the other. Um, this is one of those things. I was just thinking about this the other day. Um, Something that I've constantly had to catch myself of being in this space. You can honestly put yourself in positions to where you feel like you have all the answers. And I had a privilege of telling a couple that I was in front of a couple weeks ago, a few weeks ago at this point, that, there are moments and seasons in life where you just won't have the answers. You just won't have the answers. I've witnessed this in my own life. I've witnessed this in lives around me. You just won't have the answers. You won't have the solutions. You won't figure out why. A lot of things are happening. And instead of trying to be somebody who is trying to always give an answer or give a solution, I think there's a lot of times in this healing space where we just need to just be a place of containment, and learning how to be all things to all people, and knowing that in this season of life, you don't need an answer. You don't need me to fix something. You don't need a solution. You just need someone to be present with you in the midst of what you're dealing with. To be able to hold you, to be able to hold space for you, to be able to contain, to be able to just simply love and be available. And I think something that is really, really important, regardless of the season of life you're in, I think this is important for everyone to listen in on. I believe there's probably a majority of women in this call or in this chat, but even for the men too, right? So men communicate to solve. Women don't communicate to solve. They communicate to be heard because that's their way of connecting. A shout out to Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. And if you guys haven't checked that book out, I highly encourage you to. It really will give a great explanation of understanding, from the women understanding men, men understanding women, and how to communicate. But women communicate to connect. And so oftentimes trying to solve and fix and salute and all those things, that's not even what they're necessarily coming to you for a lot of times. So that's why it's important to ask, hey, what do you need from me? I learned this from my mentor. He's been married for 33 plus years. Something that he's always done that has stuck out to me. Hey, what do you need from me with sharing this? Like, who am I showing up as in this moment? Are you asking me this and telling me this to give you some guidance and some help, or am I just putting on my listening ears and being attentive? Right? Because that could be what she needs more than anything else. Um, and she's not there to be your science project. And that isn't your job to fix. And I think I get onto this topic, I get onto this subject because, especially when it comes to grief, and when it comes to grieving the loss of someone, we would love nothing more than to take away some of that pain or anything of that sort. But in reality, sometimes we just have to allow one another to experience that. And what's better than me trying to solve that and take that from you is to just get in it with you. This is where we're able to express the heart of Christ in a lot of ways, in the greatest formalities, when we're just able to be in the trenches with somebody. I'm not here to make it mine. I'm not here to carry it. I'm not, no, no, no. I'm just here to be present with you and allow the love and abundance that maybe I'm carrying to be something that is reflective towards you, and be something that actually, due to that kind of energy, bring you up, even in low moments. That's a whole nother conversation. But yeah, grieving your dad, and it's been a month. Yeah, that's heavy. And you being outraged is understandable. The question is, how do we go about it from here? And I think, um, I definitely think there, obviously conversations need to be had, but I definitely encourage getting into some spaces where you guys can get into some areas of healing and some help, to navigate through this, because perhaps it's the first for both of you, perhaps it's the first for one of you. Um, and yeah, being outraged, completely understood, because that's crazy. It ain't about you. It ain't about you. Well, what are we doing here, right? And I definitely get where you're coming from on that for sure. Um, Chaz asked a question earlier. What would you advise for women who are practicing being abstinent and disclosing that info to their potential partner? I love that. Great question, Chaz. I would say, um, it is important to communicate that, right? But not for the sake of like, I'm not saying it's important to communicate that because you don't want to, obviously you don't want to play in a role of duping somebody or like pretending to be one way and then you turn out to be something different. Um, but no, I think it's something that you communicate, you're upfront about, and it establishes a boundary early on. And if anything, this is something that you probably establish in the first few conversations you have with them, depending on who you're dealing with. Depending on who you're dealing with. Um, because like, yeah, I just need this to be known that like I'm not going to be instigating or engaging in any kind of relational activity in that manner. We're going to stay vertical and not get horizontal, so I don't get flagged for saying the full things. Okay. Uh like yeah, I'm gonna stay vertical and not horizontal. Right. And like, don't expect me to move in any kind of way to egg that on in you, because that's just not happening. And this is a way for us to really get to know one another in the best light, in truth, so we both know what we're dealing with and what we're stepping into. I would advise women to be, obviously you don't got to be loud and obnoxious about it. You don't have to move in a manner where you believe, or use a tone that makes you feel like you're better than somebody in communicating it. I just think it's healthy to communicate that, because there are various different men, various different women, various different people, okay, from men to women, from women to men. There's various different people that believe different things when it comes to relationships, regardless of what religious affiliation they carry. And so, because it's something that you value, you establish that and let the chips fall. Like, if they aren't okay with that, then that just means this isn't going to work. And I'm okay with that. The biggest point of that is becoming okay with the fact that this isn't going to work if I'm going to set this boundary that you are not going to have access to me in this physical nature. I can be okay with that. If that means you walk out the door, that means we no longer talk, that means we're no longer connected in a romantic manner, then so be it. The point of getting to a place of security is realizing that me abandoning my values is not worth this relationship, because then this relationship is no longer authentic. This relationship is no longer all that it can be, because I'm too busy trying to people please and make you comfortable. And at the same time, abandoning what I said I don't want to do and what I said doesn't make sense for me to do until there's legitimate commitment where we're at an altar. You have agreed to marry me. I have agreed to marry you, you know? So yeah, we're practicing that and engage in that, you know? And let the chips fall where they may. However they respond is how they respond, and it ain't got to be about you. I hope that made sense. Yeah, I would say that's a good way to communicate that for sure. Um, any more questions? So good. That was my mindset before I brought other people into my life. Let's go, Julie. That's awesome. I remember calling someone over and immediately telling them, "Listen, I got in a fight. Sorry." Tough. So yeah. How do you know if she likes you because of you or just because of the only guy who has been nice? Ooh, W questions, Zephaniah. Maybe you're still in the chat. Hopefully you are. I would say this. There are subtle signs a female really likes you. And it is because of you. Um, pay attention to the willingness of time that she gives you. That's a big factor. I'm not going to say all of it. Hopefully, I'm not exposing any kind of crazy secrets. Um, I won't say I know them all, but pay attention to the time that she invests with you. Um, a woman who really likes you for you, uh, it shows and the energy is different. Um, she's going to make time for you in ways that she doesn't normally do for anyone else. I'm talking like whim of the day. If you were free and you said, "Hey, let's go get some ice cream," or "Hey, let's go do this and do that." Obviously, if she's not on the clock or something like that, she's gonna be willing to do it. Um, I think when you have the female that really is interested in you and likes you, there's some certain verbiages that are used. I maybe won't get into all that because I don't know it all, although I've paid attention to it. Um, when she does like you though, and I'll let the ladies speak for themselves as well. I don't want to necessarily be somebody who just takes all over the place. So y'all tell me if I'm tripping, and if I'm missing anything. Um, man, I think she engages with you consistently. And I'm not measuring that by quick responses all the time. Just the level of stability and consistency in her behavior. Um, she's probably like especially when she likes you for you, she's paying attention to the small details about you. She notices. She's present enough and aware enough. Okay. Um, she's paying attention to the various different energy shifts. If you're around her enough in present or in person, maybe if you guys are long distance, that can work too. She pays attention enough to like your facial expressions, your body language, when everything is good and when something's off. She's aware. Um, I think when it's just the nice guy deal, um, I think you'll notice that you'll have to actually pull a lot from her. It's not free flowing. It's not easily given. And I'm not saying that in the sense of like, okay, because we just had a whole conversation about, obviously on this side of things, I encourage women to honor their bodies in a way where others have to earn access to them in that way. So I'm not saying it from that lane. What I am saying is that when I say free flowing, um, you know the type of girl who appreciates you for your kindness, for your gentleness, and for your generosity, but doesn't like you. Like you have to actually pull a lot from her to have time with her. Like, it's almost as if like every other time, she's busy, she's got a lot going on, too busy for you, right? Random calls and FaceTimes and all those things are not on the table. Um, and she doesn't mind being a friend of yours. but she's definitely going to continue to create distance because that's all she wants is friends, although you probably want more. Um, he's such a nice guy. He's so sweet. This, that, and the third, right? Being the first nice guy that she deals with, she's probably going to be head over heels initially, but it's gonna fade. It's gonna fade. The nice guy syndrome kind of deal that maybe a lot of people talk about, it just doesn't last. Feels good in the moment, feels good in the beginning, but it doesn't last. It might, get you a couple dates here and there, but it isn't something that's gonna be able to be built on. So that's kind of some of the things that I paid attention to. Um, if you're the first nice guy, uh, I think that one of the ways that you can know is you just ask her. Now, obviously, there might not be. Now, here's the trick: if it's more of a nice guy deal, um, if it's more of a nice guy deal, again, I think there's a space where she probably would be afraid to tell you the truth about certain things, um, like whether or not she really likes you, or if she really wants to hold space and enjoy your company. Um, the girl who really likes you for you, man, like I'm telling you, the energy is different. I've experienced it. Like, fam, the small things. Like, you don't got to do nothing extravagant. Like, this girl is head over heels over the smallest things when it comes to you. And that's the kind of effort that she just pays attention to and she doubles down on. So I think the biggest difference, hopefully I'm making sense and I'm not talking in circles. The girl that likes you for you, hey, it's going to be the smallest efforts, the smallest acts, the smallest practices. She enjoys spending time with you. You're not pulling teeth. And if it's just a nice guy kind of deal, it fades very fairly quickly, and you kind of find yourself having to force your way into being connected to this person. And she feels obligated. There's like an obligation to connecting with you because a lot of her mentality is I should want this because of how this person treats me. Not she wants this because she wants this. It's because she should. And when she moves with the should attitude, well, she'll be willing to say yes to it, but it's from a people pleasing factor. It's not because it's something that she genuinely looks at and says, I really, really want in full. So that would be my few thoughts. There's probably more. Uh, but yeah, I hope that made sense. Uh okay, so there's a lot of other comments. Spot on. Okay, Celeste, am I tripping? All the ladies in here, did I make sense? Am I lying? Was there any cap in my rap with anything I just said? Let me know. It's true. Yes, spot on. Okay. Okay. No cap. No cap. Okay. All right. I knew I wasn't tripping. I'm telling you. Like it's different. It's different. All of a sudden, and you got to pay attention too, especially for the women who are really relaxed and they're feminine, really relaxed. Kind of lost me at it. It won't last with a nice guy. Okay. I feel you, Alexis. I would love to hear more. I kind of lost you. Maybe I could clean it up. Maybe there's other areas to it. It depends. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Mhm. I would love to hear. I'd love to hear more. I'm always welcome to be put on game, man. I'm not gonna act like I know it all. I'm just telling it from some of my experiences. These are some of the things that I witnessed a little bit. Um, I don't know. Those are just my experiences. So please, please let me know. Put in the chat. Um, so tips for anxious person dealing with avoidant partner. Yeah. Dealing with an avoidant partner can be very, 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 very tough. Um, but you got to remember, part of okay, well, one, there needs to be self awareness. Okay, self awareness is very, very important. Being honest about who you are, where you are at any given moment. Okay. Um, also realize too that it is not your partner's job. And we had a little bit of a good conversation about this yesterday, and I think there's nuances to it. But remember, it's not your partner's sole job to or ease your anxiousness. Can they play a role in that and co-regulating? Yes, but clearly, if you're dealing with an avoidant, they're not in that process. So, um, you have to realize that if this is a relationship that is wanted, you cannot continuously go on the chase of trying to win this person back every argument. Don't move in a place of people. And this is easier said than done because a lot of things I'm about to say is like, don't do. But your identity is somewhat connected to some of the attachment style struggles because your nervous system is constantly on alert and in fear of this person walking away. So we have to get into a place where we're willing to just challenge a lot of those stories and meanings and expectations we're attributing to the connection and to the person. But in order to actively address this in the relationship, you have to really engage in being in the present, not chasing after this person, not constantly trying to win this person back after every argument, distance, and not associating their distance to mean that they don't want you, they don't like you, or they're running away, or they are leaving you. Because for an avoidant, someone who's aware of their avoidant tendencies and perhaps is intentionally dealing with those avoidant tendencies, um, notices that they feel smothered, so they may ask for space, but they need to be able to communicate those moments, right? Because that's a growing acumen of, hey, this is me actually dealing with this intentionally, um, and you honoring that space without taking that space that they're requesting personally, right? So check the stories, check all the meanings you're attributing to the moment, and what perhaps you're saying is playing a role in you feeling anxious in the moment with your partner. Okay, what is that? Is it really them, or is it something that's caused from you previously that this moment is just reminding you of? And they may not be aware of that, but it's also your role to one, communicate if they're not aware of it, and then two, find ways to self-regulate. That's really important. As you guys are both intentionally trying to heal. The avoidant and the anxious have to sit still and not run. The avoidant can't run away. The anxious can't chase. That's how we stop the loop. Until then, we're just constantly chasing. It's like a dog constantly chasing its tail and doesn't realize that they actually could have what they want if they just what? Sat down. Boy, that thing was nice. So when you finally sit down, now you have an opportunity to get what you're looking for as opposed to constantly chasing and running in loops and circles. Um, so those are beginning steps. And again, without trying to take into control of your avoidant partner dealing with this or healing through this, your intentional efforts need to be more on, I need to learn how to regulate my emotions in the midst of this person walking away, in the midst of this person asking for space, or maybe in moments feeling overwhelmed and smothered, shut down. They can't communicate. They're not looking to communicate and re-engage. We want to be careful of that, because that isn't necessarily about you all the time. Anxiousness can chase people away depending on how crazy it is, or I shouldn't say how crazy it is, how wild it is, because it's not necessarily crazy. It can be hyper. That's probably a better word. That's really what I'm referring to. It's hyper, and so we want to be careful of that. That would be my tips. Again, Vikram, if you're interested, I definitely not only work with I work with couples too, to really help navigate through some of these things. So send me a message, secure sessions, and I think we could definitely find something for you, to be of help. Okay. Oh yeah. Ooh. It depends. I hate that this is all so complicated. With the attachment styles, Erica, or the breakup, what are you referring to? Um, when you used to be anxious and now you're leaning slightly avoidant. Yeah, it definitely has a swing, right? We want to be careful of that. You can be anxious, swing heavily avoidant. We want to be careful of that, because that's obvious. That's not fixing the anxious tendencies. Going from anxious to swinging avoidant, that doesn't fix it. And typically, when you try to fix it or deal with it, maybe in your own spaces or in your own ways, you might find yourself on that pendulum. Um, Dealing with your anxiousness, dealing with your avoidance, although different attachment styles carry unique similarities at its roots that, lead us to deal with both of them very similarly to get to a place of security. And it starts with a lot of stillness. It starts with a lot of curiosity. It starts with a lot of honesty. Okay. Um, Absolutely. They have to be willing to do the work. They definitely have to be willing to do the work. Avoidance are runners and they don't like pressure. Absolutely. Yeah, for sure. Relationships and love in general. Man, I feel you on that. I'm gonna be honest. Uh, y'all want to hear a hot take? I struggle with being 40, wanting okay, not feeling desperate and acting out of anxiousness. Yeah, that's real, Erica. That's real. I think I got something that might be helpful towards that. I'm excited for us to work together, Erica. I think there's going to be a lot of progress. Um, you hear? Y'all want to hear a hot take? I got a hot take, man. I think there is a world. Okay. Um, y'all ever notice how? Oh well, I won't say everybody. But I would say the more information that we've gained because we're in such an information age, it's not to say that it has made relationships worse. I think it has just made the statue of perfectionism worse. So, like, more information is good. Having labelings and all those things is good. And we're not trying to insinuate that ignorance is bliss. Okay. What I am saying, though, is I think a lot of people are too smart for their own good. And it's literally you knowing all these things has actually played a role in what has hurt you in relationships because you use it as weapons, and you use it as means to basically talk yourself out of relationships and connections with people. If you ever notice, like, obviously, 40 plus, 30, 40 plus years ago, people were getting married at a higher rate, obviously. Um, Marriage was probably more affordable. Okay, let's just start there. We're definitely in a different time and a different age. So compared to what life was like 30, 40 years ago, our parents and our grandparents generation, right? They were easily able to have houses by the time they were 30. The housing market, good lord, in today's culture, ridiculous. Okay. The expense for living is ridiculous, right? So there's so many other things that are at play that is hindering relationships, not just, knowing all the attachment styles and knowing all the languages and all the wounds and all the things. But I think that the more knowledge that we've gained, the more silly we've become. And that's because people use this knowledge as a weapon against other people that they encounter. And there's a demand and a greater demand for people to be perfect or for yourself to be perfect to qualify you for engaging in a relationship, not realizing that no matter how much you learn, how much you grow, how much you intellectualize, you're going to encounter somebody who is going to challenge a lot of that, not intentionally, but just because we're human and your ability to navigate that is going to be tested. And a lot of people do not have the endurance or capacity to engage in those testings and to make it out on the other side in a healthy way for their relationships. People have become so smart, they're silly. And it's ruined relationships in a lot of ways. Um, Not because you know things, but because you just don't know what to do with what you know. And then what we do is we conflate what you know with wisdom. And we say you're wise. Like, nah, fam, you just know a lot. You've collected a lot of information. You're not wise. Wisdom is knowledge creatively applied. Thank you for the heartbeat, Amber. I appreciate your time. Wisdom is knowledge creatively applied. And so you're not actually creatively applying these things. When you go through a breakup, you rabbit hole. What was his nervous system? How hijacked was it? What's the avoidant? How can I label this to feel better about this person leaving? Not to actually grow and self-reflect and all the things. And that's not everybody's thing, but you did this to calm yourself, not to actually get to a place of growth. You did this to calm yourself. And that can be a struggle. And so maybe that was my little rant on a hot take there on some of the part of why relationships are so hard. Because I don't think it has to be as hard as we make it. Yes, we're dealing with the human heart. We're dealing with various human tendencies, various issues about one another. But that doesn't mean that it has to be hard. I don't think it has to be hard. I think a lot of times we make it hard. We make it harder than it needs to be. Shout out to all the gifts, man. I appreciate y'all. The roses, the creeper. Shout out to Sully in the building. I appreciate you, my G. How you living, man? I'm excited for our meeting on Monday as always. Um, but yeah, I think I think it's important, man. Like we man, I don't think they have to be as hard as we make it. I think sometimes we make it harder than it needs to be because, you know, relationships test a lot in you, test a lot of endurance in you, capacity in you. And the more you engage with people that don't know what they're doing with you, the more that almost becomes a reflection of your reality because that's all you expect people to do with you. And then now here we are expecting the worst out of people instead of maybe believing the best about what I could experience in this relationship. We've talked about it before. This is a lot of this stuff is psychological. A lot of this stuff is psychological. Like, for example, again, there is a such thing. I love the heart me. Appreciate you a ton, Sully. There's a such thing as um oh my goodness, what is the man, it's slipping my mind. What is it called? Um oh my goodness. I can't believe I'm like my mind is going blank and I was about to cook. I'm looking it up. Hold up. Hold up. Hold up. Hold up. Okay. I'm bringing it up. This is why I say it's psychological. Okay. Okay. Here we go. The reticular activating system. I can't believe that slipped my mind. That's crazy. Um, the reticular activating system. Okay, that's actually just basically the way of the brain highlighting what you believe into your reality. Okay, just to simplify a lot of that. And so what happens is based off what you rehearse, based off the patterns you repeatedly or constantly, experience, do, or hear, this is the stuff that's easily re-engaging your brain in relationships. And so when it comes to dating, when it comes to connecting with people, when it comes to doing all the things, what you're used to is it's just going to highlight what you believe already. So if you've rehearsed enough that men are trash, the dating pool is bad, and no one's available to date you, and things are just hard and difficult always and forever, then you're never going to put yourself. Your brain is not going to automatically highlight possibilities that could come out of engaging in said situation. You're not going to look for what's right. You're always going to look for what's wrong. You're not going to actually intentionally slow down to encounter green flags in an individual. You're going to constantly think about the red flags and what's wrong with them. Because your programming is teaching you that, again, because all men are trash, all women are trash, dating pool is bad, I'm not expecting anything out of engaging in a relationship with this person. So every first date doesn't make it to a second date, not because you can't make it to a second date, but because you don't see a possibility of that, because you're expecting everything to go wrong, doors to be closed, opportunities to not happen, all the things. Okay. So when your brain doesn't highlight all those things that actually come into agreement with those opportunities, you miss it. So this is where we get neuroplasticity. This is where we get all those things that actually slowly rewires you based off what you do and what you rehearse. So if I wanted to go Bible on y'all, I could tell y'all, Paul, do not be conformed to this world, but be transformed by the what? Renewing of your mind. In order to transform the renewing of your mind, it's what you rehearse. It's what you study. It's what you, it's looking, yeah, your brain, that's exactly what your brain does. It's looking for supporting evidence. Literally. So when you go into a relationship and then you get ghosted, your first response isn't, well, this just means that this isn't what's right for me. And somebody out there is still available to connect with me where we're going to be able to grow. It's actually, wow, see, this is why I don't do relationships. This is why I don't deal with people. This is why I don't date. This is why I don't do, because that moment literally reaffirmed what you've been believing. And your brain was quicker to attach to that than it was to the possibility that this just wasn't the right seating and that there's better for you along the way. Lord have mercy. Lord have mercy. I'm trying to tell y'all. So, like, when you say things like the dating pool is the problem, Like when you say stuff like that and you rehearse that, oh yeah, it's an issue. Shout out to the 15K likes. Thank y'all a ton. Amber is liking the trash out of this. Shout out to everybody liking this. I appreciate you guys a ton. I hope this is helpful. I hope the conversations are helpful. This is what we're here for. Thank you a ton. What if you automatically give trust, like we talked about yesterday, and your brain is just waiting? Like trust right away until they show you they will break your trust. Yeah. So I want you to, so this is like a curious exercise, right? So let's just stay curious, Erica, right? Let's stay curious with that. What would you say would be or has been a beginning space for you, like believing that people should just have 100% of your trust until proven otherwise? Where did that start for you? If you had to put a beginning space to that, beginning context to that, where did that start? And remember, well, okay, it's just an automatic thing. Here's the beautiful thing about our brains, Erica. Here's the beautiful thing. It's not just an automatic thing. Okay, since I was a little girl. Okay. All right, I don't want to turn this into a whole session, right? Because this would be something that I would ask intentionally behind that, right? So since you were a little girl, would you say your relationship with your parents was healthy? Relationship with your dad, relationship with your mom, either or, both? Like, what's the history there? Obviously, you don't have to give it all. I know this is a public chat, so please feel free to message these things. Maybe this is something we'll take into a session, right? So I don't want you to feel like you have to share all that. It was hard. Okay, 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 okay. So this is good. This is good. So there's a lot of that, right? Okay. So when we think about the idea of trusting, oh, all right. Oh, Lord. Hey, yeah. All right. So the idea of trusts and how it forms in the body. Okay, let's just start there. All right. Um, as I said before, trust is earned in drops, lost in buckets. Okay, and what we mean by that is that in order to develop trust naturally, and even from a bodily perspective, um, it takes a lot of different small behaviors for you to fully trust an individual. Okay. And so, and then forgiving my dad every time he did it because I had to say, okay, Erica. Oh my gosh. Okay. We cooking. Okay. We can, Taylor. Yeah. I have before. We can. So here's the thing. If trust is earned in drops, lost in buckets, right? And this is, or we can even go a different direction. Trust is earned in mileage, right? Like this is why when you go into places and you go and encounter people, the first thing you're possibly looking for is, hey, so what qualifies this person to do what they do? What qualifies this person to say what they're saying, right? When you go and buy food, right? And you're not buying groceries off of the street at random. Like you're actually going to proven, tested places that sell quality food, right? Because you are going to what you're trusting. Like this is something that's proven. So let's go a little further. If trust is earned in drops and lost in buckets, and it's the small acts and small behaviors that play a role in developing trust for you, okay, then that also tells us that by the time trust is shattered by somebody, let's say it was an act of betrayal, let's say it was, again, a cheating or something along those lines, all right? Typically, your body responds to broken trust by taking, maybe in order to recover the fullness of trust, depending on how the deficit or difficult it was, give or take 2 years. Okay. Now that's a rough picture to develop or redevelop trust that's been broken. So let me go a little further. If trust earned in drops, lost in buckets, and in the moment of trust being shattered takes your body time to restore and recover, all right, then the idea of giving somebody automatic trust is not something that we automatically learn to do. It's not, we can't say it's automatic in the sense that this is just the makeup of the human experience and the human body. That's not everyone's unique story. And that's not something that we automatically stamp. Because in order for trust to even take that much time to recover, it had to have taken intentional time to build, not just intellectually, but bodily. Stay with me. So then the question then becomes, well, where does this start? Where does being and developing this level of trust start? Right? We're coming back to childhood. And we're coming back to what we label as attachment styles, built roughly between the ages of 2 to 9. And your brain is at its literal softest and spongiest. Okay. Obviously, there's a lot of layers to attachment styles. I'm not going to cover it all, but let's just stay in this vein. So it's developed between the ages of 2 to 9 with your relationship to your caregivers and parents. Your trust is initially built between birth to about 2-3 years old. Okay. Well, what happens in these there's 2 stages here, but it's typically built between birth and about 2 to 3 years old. Birth to 18 months is where initial trust is built. Okay. So this is literally the trust stage. That's kind of what I like to call it. Because in the trust stage, with every cry, the need for a diaper change, all the things that you're experiencing as a baby that none of us literally remember. Maybe you do and you're in the special 1%. I don't know. But I know for me, I don't remember nothing as a baby. I just know I was a baby because look at me. But like, I had to grow at some point, right? But no, your baby experience, birth to 18 months, with every cry, with every bottle, with every change of the diaper, anytime that was not met, it was ignored. Okay? That need wasn't met. The baby, even at such a young age, is already beginning to develop a sense of safety with the world because their entire world is dependent on the caregiver that just gave birth to them or whoever is taking care of this child at this time. So it's already a sense of it is already being developed. And so then this is where also, and this is something I taught a little bit on in my summit that I had a couple weeks, was it a couple weeks ago? Last week, maybe last a week or 2 weeks ago. I get my stuff mixed up. But this is also where a lot of the hyper independent women show up. Not to say that they show up as hyper independent women as babies, but this is where that hyper independence has its beginning. Because I was disappointed when a need I had as a baby wasn't met, and your body keeps the score. So all of this stuff has a way of carrying out even through your young childhood and adult as you experience things that either confirm that or perhaps says something differently. All right. So now that we have an establishment of where trust is built within these stages, that's stage 1, okay, the trust stage. What does 2 to 3 have to do with it? Well, 2 to 3 has to do with your circle. It has to do with your social circle. Okay. At 2 to 3 years old, this is where your social circle is developed. Yes, sir. I got you. I got the email. I got the email. I'm gonna send a response when I close out here in just a little bit. Yes, sir. I appreciate you, Doc. Um, the so between the ages of 2 to 3, now we're getting into your baby is developing a social circle, but their social circle is immediately connected to their parents. Yes, sir. Appreciate you. It's immediately connected to their parents. So, the whole mommy look, daddy look, Sean, look, this, look, right? We're constantly in this stage of doing things to get the approval and attention of our caregiver. Okay. Now, I can tell you what this shows up as in your adulthood. All right. Because eventually, if it's not something that turns into being affirmed, okay, being affirmed of your value, being affirmed of all these things, even as a child at this age, if it's not affirmation that you're met with, love and care and connection that you're met with, then what this turns into is enmeshment. What this turns into is a level of codependency that is built where the child doesn't know how to make decisions beyond their parents, beyond their caregivers. This is where you end up seeing in your adulthood your in-laws being the roof to the home of your marriage. Because now the in-laws have everything to say about your spouse and they don't even see your spouse in the same way you do. And you don't say nothing because you're too caught up in keeping their approval. So this is where this shows up. But it's filled with external validation. It's filled with approval. It's filled with all those things. What does this have to do with what we're talking about? If you're telling me that trust is automatic and that there was no beginning point for you, you're telling me that we just haven't thought hard enough. And we don't really have an awareness to how trust can actually be developed. Because it does start at a young age. It doesn't mean it stays there. Please hear me, y'all. It doesn't mean it stays there because you have the ability to change and make different directions and decisions. This is not a wiring that's permanent. Just like your attachment style is not permanent. This stuff is not permanent. However, I'm just giving you an explanation of where this stuff starts in baby steps. So your trust, okay, being automatically in a manner of like, hey, I just give my trust 100% to this person. Erica, and for others who are listening, somewhere down the line, okay, as far back as you possibly could remember, and this isn't to create planted memories. This isn't to create any of this thing. I just want you to be aware. There was a shift in something that happened where either you were like, I can fully trust this person. Therefore, because I can trust this person, I can trust everybody 100% of the time. And they have to prove to me that I can't trust them. Okay. Which, again, in some aspects isn't the worst thing. Like, it's not to say all of that's bad. Just paying attention to where you're applying that. Because this also is something that will probably constantly tell you in future relationships, like, oh, so this person has to constantly treat me bad and cheat on me in order for me to like completely lose trust in them. Well, this is kind of also where we conflate abuse with neglect. Okay. This is a stage that shows up from stage one. Remember talking about stage one from birth to 18 months, the trust stage. So the hyper independent individual, right? This is also where when you start seeing kids grow up in certain environments, perhaps it was a very, very neglectful home. Mom was strung out on drugs, dad was an alcoholic, something along those lines. Like there's real stories out there. And so the kid then grows up feeling like they have to be the man of the house, the woman of the house. So I got to go, you know, make it happen in order to provide for my family at a young age. So I'm sitting here selling this, doing that, doing this, running money, doing all of that because my parents are I'm parenting my parents at a young age. I don't know what it's like to be a kid. My innocence was kind of taken. So as a kid, I had to be the parent. Survival. That's constantly reaffirming the idea that I can't trust anybody because they're not going to show up for me and I'm going to be disappointed. Okay? And so what happens though in adulthood relationships when you become the parent and you're parenting your parents and this stuff, obviously continues to build, it cultivates, it reaffirms, it confirms as you grow older. This is where you start staying in relationships longer than you should. And this is where you start seeing connections where you confuse and conflate abuse with neglect. Abuse is something that shouldn't have been done to you that was done to you. Neglect is something you needed that should have been done for you but wasn't. And what happens is we conflate the two. So now we're staying in abusive settings and situations and relationships because, well, I'm supposed to be the fixer here. They're going to get it together. I can save them. Okay. We don't know when to leave well alone. Right. And so a lot of these things kind of show up. And again, I'm only giving you partial. Okay. I'm not even giving you the whole deal. I would be a fool to tell you it's the full deal. It's partial. Okay. But this is something that gives us just a starting place. So when we talk about trust, y'all, trust naturally. Trust naturally is something that we want to develop, right? If there's one person that we should have trust with that's just like stapled and grounded in your soil, in your core, in your soul, that's with God. But here's what's happened. We can go even spiritual routes too, because all this is there. Like, the fallen nature of man, humanity, like all of that stuff plays a role in a lot of the different functions of the human heart. But all of this stuff that I'm explaining to you, even at beginning levels, is also what impacts how you view God. Boy, y'all don't want to talk in here. Oh my goodness. I don't got enough time. I don't got enough time. I just don't. I don't. I don't. I don't. I wish I did, but I don't. Like, this is important because, like, now we're talking about even how you view God. Because if I couldn't trust a soul earthly, my parents, caregivers, anything like that, I've always been on my own, always had my back. I was treated like this, I was treated like that. I had to fend for myself because no one stood up for me. All the different things that came up from those experiences. Of course, you're going to go to church tomorrow and hear and be invited to trust God with your life. And that's a beautiful thing. And don't trust me when I tell you, God has a way of moving where even in the moment where your soil isn't the best, God can still bring you in. God can still rescue. God can still save. That's what he came to the cross for. That's what he resurrected for. All the things. But you hear somebody encourage you to trust God. But your soil is reminding you of all the times you trusted other people and it didn't work. And so now your soil is trying to convince you if that didn't work, well, what is God going to do? But that's not necessarily true. That's just programming. That's programming, right? So we're getting so when we have conversations on trust, I just want y'all to be mindful. Like we have conversations on trust, we can have conversations on various other things. It is not just it's not random. It's not one of those things where we just go, hey, it's automatic. Like, no, fam, this stuff cultivated somewhere over time. And it just takes some time, perhaps, to just process through it, to think through it. That's why I'm always like, hey, let's stay curious. Stay curious. Because I think it's easy to think on some of that stuff and then just be like, shoot, I don't know. If we stay curious enough, there might be some things that we could find. Not to create, not to act like it has to be there, but just be curious. Because your brain is like, oh, I'm waiting for the moment that this person chooses to betray me and chooses to, no longer uphold what the trust that I'm already giving them. That can be a various different things. I won't necessarily put a specific label on that, but I do want you to be curious, like, oh, okay, so either I'm waiting for the rug to be pulled out from underneath me, or I am, constantly trying to prove why this person should trust me or why I should trust this person. So I'm back and forth. I'm engaging with that constantly. Just want to be curious, man. Want to be curious. That's not random. That's not random. And the other extreme to that, and here's what's crazy. And when we start talking about conversations like abundance, fam, like I don't necessarily have to move with every relationship where it's like, hey, like I'm gonna put you in a position to prove to me why I should trust you. Um, like I don't think it's something that you have to be so alerted on all the time, depending on the connection and relationships you build. But when you move in this sense of abundance, you know, there's a world where it's like, you're not trying to put your trust so deeply in humanity that they can do nothing wrong. But what builds up the opportunity for somebody to even fit in that category is a lot of the things that they were showing through their behaviors that let you see, like, wow, so you can show up on time. So you are showing up for me. So and here's and it just goes into various different conversations. I really my mind is going everywhere. Cause then when you start talking about the feminine energy, what's so beautiful about the feminine energy is that it's a very testing energy. And so femininity at its core has the ability to test a lot of different things just because you're in your esteemed energy. And so what's so interesting about that and unique is a lot of women, again, when you're resting in your full femininity, it's almost like basically like a windstorm, or like a tornado. And soft, nurturing, when safe and secure, protective. Absolutely, Glitzy, right? So when you think about a feminine energy that is rested and that is in its full esteem, healed, relaxed, it's like a tornado, right? Like, there's just some moments where you're reactive and various moments where you're maybe having days and, all over the place, whatever the case is. And when you're connected to a masculine energy and a healed masculine energy, as you and your feminine energy are constantly trying to prove to him, or like, hey, you don't want to stay with me. Like, I have a lot going on. This is too much for you to handle. A healthy masculine is going to look at that and say, I still love you, still want you, and still choose you either way. You cannot run me away. You cannot run me away. I'm here for the long haul. And before you know it, all the wild mysticism just starts calming down. I know I just made up a word, but all of it starts calming down. She's recentered. She's re-engaged. All because she's continuously seeing that there's nothing she can do to prove otherwise, that this person she's connected to isn't safe. So, like, I don't want to go, I don't want to go too deep. Let me know if I probably put a one in the chat if any of that made sense. All I'm trying to say is that the way that you engage with trust isn't random. The way you experience trust isn't random. It isn't random. And there's a lot where that comes from. A lot where that comes from. And it's a lot easier said than done. It's a lot easier said than done. Awesome. I'm glad it's making sense. Because there's a lot of different directions we can go with this, but it's gonna be too much. It's gonna be too much. It's gonna be talking over a lot of heads. Exactly what my life is. Didn't have enough security. It has affected me. Yes. Yeah, JT. Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And here's the beautiful thing about it though, and this is why I constantly come back to like restating these kind of things. It's important to tell y'all that you don't have to stay in those spaces. Like, even though those are things that you didn't experience, things that you're lacking, all that, you can experience change. Your life can look different. The way you trust can grow. The way you love can change. Like, even though you didn't have all that in the time, it doesn't mean that it gets to define the rest of your life. You are not hardwired to the point where whatever happened to you and there's nothing you can do about it. That is not true. That is not true. You can change. It's just your matter of willingness and ability. Are you willing to change, and are you able to change? And when you have both, ain't nothing you can't do. It's just a matter of time. Yeah, yeah, Glitzy, absolutely, right? And that a lot of people do carry that mindset. And those are people who, again, I think for a lack of just better terms and not sugarcoating anything, just don't want to take accountability for what's left. It's easier for me to live a life where I push out and make it all about other people and what they didn't do for me. Because now I get the privilege of living in this dysfunction and I don't have to change. Accept me as I am. Jesus already did that. So you're not going to just show up on my front door and tell me already did that. So you're not going to just show up on my front door and tell me to. Jesus already did that. There's a reason, and what's crazy. I had a funny moment, with moms, like a couple nights ago. I had just got done grilling, cooking for the fam. She has this whole new bedding, and she was like, "Oh, come in and sit on the bed." I had just taken a shower, and so I was like, "Nah, you didn't want me at my worst. You don't deserve me at my best." Yeah, I'm just playing around, because she didn't want me to sit on the bed while I was dirty. And I had an immediate thought of a viral clip that went around where somebody was like, you didn't even want you at your worst. That's why you changed. And I just be thinking of stuff like that as I go through my day. But it's so true, man, that this is the same type of people that say you didn't want me at my worst, you don't deserve me at my best, but you didn't want you at your worst. So why is it okay for me or for you to put me in a position to accept you at a worse experience of you don't even want? How does that make sense? Now, don't hear that in the lane of, again, marriage for better or for worse, richer for poor, in sickness and in health. When we're talking about experiencing long-term relationships and marriage, bro, you're going to see um all of that. You're going to see all of that, right? But I just think it's important to consider. Like, yo, let's not try to put people in positions to where they have to accept a version of us that we're unwilling to change. And I think if there's anything in you that says there's this part about me that's unwilling to change, like I'm unwilling to budge on this, that's outside of your faith, that's outside of your spiritual foundations, all the things. If you're looking at yourself and saying I'm unwilling to change about that, it's like, ooh, marriage is excluded. What you mean, Lisa? Marriage excluded? Marriage is inclusive in all these kind of conversations. Um, Let me see here. Ooh, what did I miss here? Oh, maybe I didn't. Y'all just responding to other things. Yeah, absolutely. All relationships are based on this type. Like I just want y'all to consider, fam. Like, fam, just because you say this is just how I am, that doesn't give you permission to not look inwardly, do reflection, do honest work, and heal. And we see that if and again, if healing was easy, everybody would do it, right? If healing was easy, everybody would do it, and it's not easy. It's not easy work. TK, shout out to you, man. I appreciate you. Can I ask how I'm supposed to heal or help my girlfriend who has anxious attachment to me? Well, I'll answer the latter. Um, oh my goodness, Glitz, that's a good question. What percentage do I think actually does the work? I mean, I'm not somebody. It's very. I'll just say it's low. I don't know the number. I just say it's low. It's low. Um, yeah, I think one of the best ways you can help your anxious attachment girlfriend, um, man, I think there's ways where you just want to be curious about how you can be present, right? So ask her. I think one of the best ways is to ask her, "Hey, what do you need from me?" I always think having conversations like this with your significant other is so huge, and not just your romantic partner. I'm talking about anybody you're connected with. As relationships grow, seasons change, needs change. Be open to that. The same song and dance you were given in the beginning may not be something that works now. So we have to be willing to be curious. Hey, what do you need from me in this season? Pay attention to some of the things that she says. Um, be willing to communicate what that looks like, but then also realize too that it's not your job to fix her. It's not your job to fix her. It's not your job to solve that. It's not your job to do any of that. Your job is not to fix her anxious attachment. The best you can do is be present. And as you're growing in that, you're honest enough to say, hey, do I have the capacity to support this girl as she's experiencing growing pains from her anxious attachment? Because you may be on the receiving end of things you didn't cause. This is the stuff that people don't talk about a lot. But like, yeah, you might be on the receiving end of things you didn't cause. Like she might have moments where she's, in fear you're going to walk away or whatever the case is. Sometimes, again, there's various different layers to the attachment style. Her fear of rejection, the wounds, all the things. You just have to be honest and say, yeah, man, do I believe I have the capacity or I don't. Be honest, but if I have the capacity to support this person with where they are, then that's what I want to do. And you're going to be on the receiving end of a lot of different things she'll do in response to some of the things that you're doing, but not necessarily because of what you initially did on the surface. It'll be more because of what it reminds her of. And that's her job to be able to communicate that. You want to be sure you're creating such a safe space to be able to reflect that. Um, but yeah, I just don't take that upon yourself. She has to do the work. And if she's not self-aware, self-awareness is going to be the greatest start for her to be able to make those differences. So yeah, ask her what she needs. And based on what she responds with, find creative ways to meet those needs, while at the same time being reassured that your job isn't to fix her. Your job isn't to solve that. She has to do the intentional work to be able to see the growth. And I think your relationship will be better off because of that if she chooses to do and engage in that. I hope that makes sense. Um, she just told me she's not ready for a relationship and I'm anxious type. She just told me she's not ready. Okay. Yeah, so believer. Believer. Yeah, yeah, and yeah, don't want her to stay because of fear. Again, I think that's something that she has to address. Um, and you got to think about this too. You don't want her to stay because of fear. Um, yeah, again, I think that's something that she has to be honest about. And you want to be able to create enough space to make her feel safe enough to be honest about that. So when you're having conversations and those things come up, be attentive, be present, lean in, ask questions, be gentle in tone. Like you notice how as I'm going through this conversation, the tone is a little different. The tone is a little softer, presents a little bit of a warmer feel. Be able to engage with her in that way. I think that is, your tone and your body language, your posture in those moments are going to be really, really helpful for her to feel safe to have those conversations and to be honest with where she is. Um, and as she's continuing to intentionally grow in that in herself, by pausing, not running, not being reactive, I think you'll be able to start seeing differences with how you guys engage and what the relationship looks like in the future. And again, if you guys are interested in doing some work together, let me know. Send a message, DM Secure Sessions. I would love to be of service any way I can. Um, the she just told me she's not ready. Then you said, "Do I just move on?" Yeah, man, just move on. Yeah, yeah. I would say move on. Clips. Someone who tells you that they are not interested, believe them, and realize that your clinginess and chasing is just your anxiousness on high alert. Possibly clinging out of fear of, oh, this is as best as it's gonna get. Pay attention to some of the stories that you're attributing to that meaning. Um, and I've been there. Process through that rejection, process through that, and realize that it's not we don't have to worry about why she said no or why she's not interested, why she's not looking for that. That's not our job. Rejection is either about preference or preparation. She either prefers something different or she's not prepared for you. But either way, it's not about you. And any moment that you find yourself trying to change yourself to invest in someone who says she doesn't want to, then yeah, we don't want that anyway. Yeah, like I said, clips. Yeah, and I know there's a lot of different reasons. I'm just saying, believe her. She says she's not ready. Don't post that. Don't force that. Don't force that. You may be in a different position than she is, and that doesn't necessarily mean that that is your job then to get her to where you are. If you're ready, she's not. She needs to be in a space where she can work through that actively and then get to a place in her own pace where she's ready. And by the time she's ready, who's to say that that's with you? Right? We're just living in a place of honesty in all of this and being okay with the outcome and being full with an abundance and love to the point where whatever she chooses doesn't have to impact you negatively. I don't understand why my husband presents as the nicest guy in the world, barely dated, put me on a pedestal, then was awful to me. Um, Danielle, it sounds like there's so much more um, to that. Do you want to share more? Feel free to send a message. Sounds like there's a lot going on right there. Um, No, you don't have to fully remove her from your life. No. Just know like but you do want to be honest because it sounds like you want a relationship, but she's just not ready for one. The one thing you don't want to do is pretend to be friends with her just so you feel like you're in close proximity to date her eventually. You want to be honest. If you can't handle just a friendship and friends only, then say that. But I think it's just a based on your capacity and honesty. I know for me, I had an experience, man. Listen, I was in hot pursuit. We had 3 dates. Things went well. Told it wasn't gonna move forward. I was confused. I thought I was hitting a lot. I was like, brother, I was doing everything right. I was like, ain't no way. All this positive stuff being said. And now all of a sudden, this is what it comes to. And I chased, to get answers, to get solutions. And, I think what I learned is the same thing that was said in those moments were the same thing she initially said. And I chased after that response. And, um, I had to learn. Believe them, believe them, believe them, believe them. And a lot of my anxiousness was on fire, trying to get some of those solutions, get those answers. And my first rejection was different than my second one. First time getting rejected, it was hurtful. Second time getting rejected, I was able to accept it, be more at peace with it, be okay with it. I was full, all of that. You know, yeah, it's been hard. Yeah, it's been hard for me to separate things for sure. Um, and I think it is hard, and it can be hard. That doesn't mean that it's not the right thing to do, right? Doesn't mean it's not the right thing to do, and something to be curious about for sure. Something to be curious about. Okay, I think I answered everything. Let's see. Danielle LaBelle. He enmeshed himself in my life, but if I ever came to him with something that bothered me, he blew up. Mm, okay. Are you guys still together? Are you guys still together? Yeah. Yeah. No, it sounds like it's a lot going on, Danielle, for sure. Um, Listen, yeah, like I said, and my books are open, you know. Um, I can definitely do the best I can to help you process through some of that. Sounds like it's a lot going on, you know, um, and a lot of questions, a lot of different hurts, a lot of different pains um, to possibly process through. And like I said, send me a message, anything. Um, like I said, I won't act like I have all the answers. I don't. But sometimes you just need a space to be able to process some of that stuff. And my messages and books are available for sure. All right. Well, I do have a hard cutoff. I'm like 10 minutes late. Put a one in the chat if all of this made sense. If all these conversations were helpful, if any of this was helpful. Um, I appreciate you guys a ton for checking it out. Be sure to go to the top of my page and check out the free relational diagnostic. All right. Um, are you in a relationship or are you another single person giving relationship advice? Well, I am single. Surrounded by a lot of successful, healthy marriages, um, all the things. So yeah, I definitely give relationship advice within my lane. So there's that. Hope that's helpful, user. Um, Definitely go to the top of my page and be able to check out that link and be able to get your free relational diagnostic. All right, to uncover some of the patterns as you're in process of healing, um, and be able to work through some of the things there. Take your next steps, book your qualification call, perhaps get into some coaching. as we're designed to help you build a healthier, happier, and whole relationship with yourself, with God, and with others. Okay. Um, so be sure to check that out. Also, if you're interested in being a part of the secure program, okay, that's actually a program designed to help you go from anxious avoidant attachment to secure attachment. Okay. All of these things that I'm putting in this program are things that I did and actively did to be able to get to the place of security that, yes, in various ways is still being tested, but is proven to be strong uh, in various different ways. Okay. And something that's been helpful for others that I'm just finally putting into a program to help you get and build lasting stability and security. Okay. So if you're interested, be sure to send me a message with the word secure. All right. I would love to be of service to you there and help you get there. Also, if you're interested in some sessions, okay, my books are open to be able to work together. Um, I don't know. I've had some success. I've had successful relationships, user. But I think you're pretty set in what you're looking for and what you believe. So have at it. But yeah, be sure to check out that. Send me a message, secure sessions. I'll be able to help you out there. Um, and go from there. All right. If you can't do anything else, be sure to follow. So we continue building healthier, happier, and whole relationships with yourself, with others, and with God. Yeah, it's just people that want attention and they can have it. They got it. Um, but anyways, until next time, be easy and be breezy, my friends. Check it. Peace.